Oh yeah. Clear day. This is gorgeous up here. The view. Man, even right now it's cool. Oh, yeah. It's.
Just right here where we are now. This is where Hitler's Berghof home formerly stood. I'm going to start with some photographs. I know it's a little difficult to kind of visualise how it used to be now that it does look quite different. We've got lots of trees and things. So I'm going to show you some photographs to begin with. I'm going to, as best I can, try to orient you to how that house exactly was situated. I'm also going to point out, whilst we're here, any of the kind of more key or more important features of the house. So point out where the main driveway was, the terrace of the Berghof, the panoramic window at the front, that kind of thing. But also, before we leave, I will make sure you have a little bit of time to yourselves. We're not in any rush because we've got the whole day. A little bit of time to yourselves to take a closer look at the things that I'm pointing out in kind of different directions. Take any pictures you'd like and that kind of thing as well before we're heading back to the bus. So, I mentioned on the bus a little while ago that it was back in 1928 that Hitler first began renting a home, which was also here in this location, and it looked like this, although there were many changes to that.
And it was right here?
It was right here, yeah. So it was called Haus Wachenfeld, and as you can see, quite a traditional Bavarian Alpine style property. He rented it from 1928 up until 1933. Of course, that's when he came to power, at which point he then purchased the property. He purchased the house mainly using money from the sales of his book, Mein Kampf, or in English, My Struggle. A couple of things about Mein Kampf. Firstly, the book itself is split into 2 volumes. The second volume of the book he wrote here on the Obersalp. Not here specifically in the location that we're at now, but there was, not far away from here, it's not there anymore, but just a little wooden, kind of basic little wooden hut in the woods, and he sat in that and wrote the second volume of his book. By the time he came to power, he had already sold 240,000 copies of his book, although interestingly, after he came to power, he then made the decision that it would be compulsory ownership. So every single German household must own a copy of the book.
It's good for sales.
Good for sales. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, after he purchased the house, it then underwent a major renovation. So it was completely remodelled, it was extended, it became somewhat larger than this, and kind of more impressive to look at, or more of a statement really. This is very traditional, very charming, but it wasn't quite matching up with the kind of leader he was going to be, not quite sending the right message. So after all of that renovation work was complete, so 1933 to 1936, they were working on it, and then it looked like this. Yeah, quite a big change.
Oh, guys.
For those that are taking pictures of the pictures, which is fine obviously, if you look at them, so I know the lighting can be interesting. If any of you look at the pictures throughout the day and you find they don't look great, do just let me know. We're gonna, once we go for the lunch break in a little while, I will bring this with me for the lunch, and so once we're in a more light controlled setting, if you'd like to go through again and try again, if anything's turned out terrible, just let me know. No problem.
That's a whole lot bigger.
Yeah, a whole lot bigger, yeah. And at this point it was then renamed. So originally it was called House Wachenfeld. It was renamed the Berghof.
So this house and the previous house, are they gone?
Yes, but yeah. And I've got pictures of the destruction as well that I'll show you. And the Berghof, put this home here on the mountainside. The Berghof, as I said, very significant historically, the building. You do see a lot of reference to the Berghof in history books and documentaries and so forth, but you do find that it's often referred to as Hitler's vacation property, his holiday home, his summer residence. They very often call it his summer villa. That's not really the case at all. It's not somewhere that he only spent summer times or vacation times. This was very much the home that he considered to be his main home. This is the home that he spent by far the most amount of time actually living in during the regime. And I mean, it certainly wasn't just for vacation time. As I say, the second seat of government power. So a lot of very, very important conversations were taking place, just like this. Naming it the second seat of government power was really a testament to how much time he wanted to spend here. He didn't really care to be in Berlin. The seat of power, the first seat of power, of course. But he needed to really behave as if he were in Berlin when he was here. So naming it the second seat of government allowed him to do that. So the way that the house stood, to try and give you kind of an idea, of course none of these trees were here. These trees were all planted just after the final destruction in 1952. We can see, it, as I'm holding the picture, this is exactly how the house stood. So facing out in that direction, you can see how kind of wide, I suppose, the house was. By how far along you can see that this wall goes. So you can see the wall stretching all the way in that direction.
And was that the back wall?
Yeah, yes and no. So the wall behind me is here in this part, not part of the actual house itself. It was the back retaining wall of the property, so it's actually just behind the house. Yeah, so in effect kind of holds the mountain back. And then you do have parts over there that are back wall of that part of the house. I don't know, and that's one of the, I've got a list of questions that I'm always trying to tick off, but my top one is what was the square footage of the house, because I'd really like to figure out how big it was in square footage. But as I said, that's how far you can see that it kind of stretches in this direction. It went back as far as just a little way in front of the retaining wall, and I've got a picture in a minute to help to show how close it was to there. And then we'll also, in a moment, we'll head to the front. We've got a little bit of an original brickwork from the foundations at the front of the house, so I can show you exactly how far to the front it came as well. So, as I said, hopefully, by the time we leave, we'll have a better idea of how it was. These next pictures show the destruction in the two stages that I already talked about on the back. So we'll come around over here. The first picture is what was left after the bombing raid. The bottom picture is taken actually during that destruction. So again, this time explosives. In 1952 they blew it up and took it away. A moment ago we had a front-on view of the house from over there. This is now a side view of the house from that direction. So if I come closer you can see that's now the back of the house and that's the wall. So that's the wall right there. Okay. Yeah. And then the wall after.
A lot of bomb damage. Yeah.
Okay, so now it's exactly that. Yeah, that's the top part of it and then the lower part of it there. Which is a little bit in parts buried now. Okay, so now a side-on view from that direction, the back of the house, and that's, if you look closely, that's the wall that you can see just behind me. And then at the bottom you can also see the wall after it was left behind. So after this destruction in 52 is when the trees here were planted.
When they came in and actually bombed the house, was the war over or was it not over? Meaning, was somebody shooting at the airplanes coming in to drop the bombs for this,
So, yeah.
or was that after?
No, technically the war was not over. The writing was on the wall, but the war was not over at that point, no.
So this is Allied bombing.
Yeah, RAF, yeah.
The retaining wall.
RAF.
Yeah, so that's down the back of the house,
that
and
corner
that's the wall. So that is the kind of higher part of the wall, and then that's the lower part of the wall, which you can see in parts, and then in parts it's kind of buried. But yeah, so that's kind of the two levels of it, and then that's the wall afterwards. And then that part of the wall that stretches all the way along there, you can't see in this picture. So this part of the wall that I'm pointing out is that part. Yeah. I know it is kind of tricky.
If they have a book on this, I might buy it.
So, should the house be here, we would be stood in this room. This was kind of the main hall, the main room, and conference hall kind of thing. So a great big room that spread. This was a whole huge big room that stretched really all the way from the back of the house all the way to the front of the house. So what you can see, there was just a corridor behind that wall that you can see just there, just a little narrow corridor through the door. So you can see this fireplace in the picture. I will come round. This fireplace in the picture would have been just right here. This is a little bit of the foundation of that fireplace. So that's where we are stood in, kind of to visualise what it would be looking like. This is the room that we'd be in. The back of the room, the fireplace just there. The front of the room went all the way to the front, and I'll show you exactly in a moment. The front of this room went all the way out that way, and at the front of this room was the picture window. So the fireplace was just moist. Yeah, if the glare is not good, as I say, just I'll put some of the light just for your own kind of pace. Or I've also got a business card. If anyone wanted, you could take my business card. If you drop me an email so I know your address, I could send you over a digital copy of all the files. Okay, so as I say, that's how far back the house came. Just in front of the wall, then you had the back of that room, there's a little narrow and there. So then if we head to the front, I'll point out to you how far it came to the front. We also had the main driveway at the front.
Tourists in the mist.
Very nice. Nice bush trees and everything.
Great view.
Yeah.
What's up?
I'd like
Sure,
to
it
see
looks
what it
amazing.
I'd like to see what it was. I do have a picture.
Yeah.
Okay, so then the house coming out as far as I said, we've got a little bit of original brickwork from the foundations of the two front corners of the house. So firstly, this one you can see here, that whole corner.
Yeah.
So that was the corner of the house. It went all the way up. It's not steps. I know it looks like steps. There's a couple of YouTube videos that say it's the steps. It's not the steps. It's just the way that it's broken away. It would have been the corner of the house. And then over on the other side, the same. Just a little bit smaller, that one, but you can see the brickwork just right there. Exactly. Thank you very much. That would be the other front corner. So if we go back to the picture that I already showed you, front facing the house, I've just showed you those two corners. Okay? So the two corners just there. In between the two corners then, you can see that there's this huge window. So that would have been just behind where I am stood. You'd all be stood in front of the window there. And if I flip the page, you can see that window. A little bit more to scale. Yeah, huge window. The window also, you can see from the pictures, operated in such a way that the whole thing opened at once. So that's what we have, is the closed window and then the open window. So the way that it operated, the whole window lowered down into the basement underneath. That's what you see in the pictures. The size of the window was 3.6 metres tall by 9 metres wide. So I believe around 12 by 27 feet.
Wow.
If it wasn't foggy, would we be seeing the
This.
bottom picture?
Yes, you would. Sorry about the fog. But yeah, so the mountains behind is.
Right, get a picture of the mountains.
Careful.
All right.
Okay.
It wasn't a low rent district. No.
Yeah, so you can see it compared to the filament. It's huge. That's the view.
Yeah, I didn't know they bombed his house.
Yeah, one piece of brick. Yeah.
What's that?
Especially the windows.
They were bombing the area.
So this window, as I just showed you a moment ago, that photograph of the room that we would be standing in, that was still in the same room. So at the back of the room we had the fireplace, at the front of the room, the window. No, I can do it again, no problem. And then the way that we came in, one second, where is it? The way that we came into the property, the footpath that we took, there were two driveways or entrances leading in. That would have been the smaller entrance. So the staff entrance, there's a whole staff wing, that's what the part of the house over there was. Deliveries, that kind of thing, was that second entry point. And then the main driveway, perfect, the main driveway started just down here, parallel, but at a lower level. So if you're peering through the trees, you can see a little bit of patch where it's opened up and you can see the street from here. And again, those roads are the same, so that's where the main driveway would have connected to the street, just through the trees there. And then there's a much smaller, narrower footpath which comes along, leading the same kind of journey as that driveway would have been. In a moment, as I say, I keep promising, but I will give you some free time to take a little look, and you can see if you get close to the edge, there's some of the original driveway is still down there, some of that asphalt just down there. Then it would have been in this corner that you had the steps. So in here there was a big marble staircase leading up to the house, like this grand kind of staircase entrance. So that's where Hitler would have greeted guests had they been coming in this corner just here. So the cars, guests could have been driven in to that point, they could have then exited to be welcomed up the staircase. The driveway then continued past the house, past the front, along here, and then down in the corner over in that direction, that was the garage, and then we would have parked the vehicles then. I've got another picture I'd like to show you. So I was talking about uninvited guests, pilgrimages that were taking place, and they put a stop to it and they set up the security, and then they didn't have so many unwanted or unwelcome visitors anymore. But they still were using the area and using kind of the opportunity for visits in the propaganda. And one of the ways that they were doing that is they were inviting certain groups of people to come to the house to have the honour of meeting Hitler here at his Berghof. One particular group that they were inviting, what I've got a photograph example of, was Hitler Youth groups coming. And so the bottom picture that I have here is an example of these kinds of visits that they were organising. So you can see it's Hitler Youth all in their uniforms, would have been lining the driveway. And you can see Hitler at the end, so the idea being that they'd, in return for their support, they would be welcomed here. And then they take pictures of this and they'd be using it in the propaganda. So one of the ways that they were using this area quite heavily in the propaganda was to try to show the side of Hitler where he was connected to the youth. He was interested in the youth, he was kind of committed to the youth of the future of Germany. This is another picture taken right here. I'm showing quite a few pictures that were taken here because it's interesting, but specifically because there's a lot of confusion between the Eagle's Nest and the Berghof. I'm going to try my best to clear all of that confusion up for you today.
So is that like right down there?
That's exactly there, yeah, exactly that. And then you can't really see it in the picture, but the staircase we just from up just there, so the corner just there, yeah. A lot of confusion between the Berghof and the Eagle's Nest. You see so many photographs online that are mistaken for being taken at the Eagle's Nest. A lot of reference to the Eagle's Nest, especially in documentaries, they always talk about, I find, the Eagle's Nest compound. And the Eagle's Nest in reality is just the building that we're going to be headed up to later on after lunch at the peak of the mountain. When they say the Eagle's Nest compound, they mean the Obersalzberg compound that I've been talking about through the tour today, or they often say Eagle's Nest, but in fact it's in actually the Berghof where we are just now, so things like this. Specifically, the terrace I'd like to point out to you, where the terrace of the Berghof was, because that's the famous terrace, was the terrace that's just here. So many pictures of Hitler taken on the terrace. There's also a lot of film footage. You see a lot of the home movies that were taken on the terrace, always mistaken for being the Eagle's Nest, and not the case. So the terrace, as I said, the driveway would have gone along here. We had the garage down at that point, and then above the garage is where the terrace is located. So not in front of the window, because the house went all the way up to the front, but just to the side there would have been the terrace of the Berghof. And that, as I say, just right there, that's the famous terrace. I've got a couple of pictures of the kind of famous shots that I mean. You may well have seen this kind of thing before.
I've seen it.
Yeah, so much stuff like this out there. Anything that you see like this, even if it says underneath that it is the Eagle's Nest, it's not. So these pictures were taken. This is very similar, the bottom picture is very similar to the home movies I'm talking about. All of that was taken just right there.
No trees.
No trees, and yeah, I know. These trees were all planted obviously after the destruction, but also there weren't trees. It feels kind of really hemmed in now, but and this whole terrace was just, well, as you can see, completely open, so none of those trees would have been in the way of the view. And the same on this side. Okay.
I would assume that would be
The Eagle's Nest, yeah. It's the most common assumption or misconception. First of all, Hitler spent, which I'll talk about later on, but Hitler spent very little time at the Eagle's Nest. So there aren't very many pictures of him up there. And secondly, when we head up to the Eagle's Nest, there is a terrace up there, an outdoor terrace. But it was all built later on, after the war. So when these kind of pictures were taken, if you see a terrace of this size at all, it didn't exist at the Eagle's Nest, so it wasn't up there. But oftentimes you'll find that it actually, the photo does credit the Eagle's Nest, but it's not. Okey doke. Then, what I'd like to give you is the time that I keep promising, that you can have it to yourselves and stop, take a little break from listening to me for a few minutes. Obviously, if you have any questions, that's what I'm here for, but otherwise as well, you've got the time to take a closer look at anything that I've been pointing out to you. As I say, if you wanted to, there is a little bit of the original driveway still remaining down over the edge just there.